Welcome back, everybody. It is Wednesday with the Jocks of All Trades, which means it is time for Sideline GMs, the show where we kind of melt down everything about teams and lay it out flat for you and tell you what's happening and what needs to happen. So I've been MIA for a couple of weeks. So sorry about that, but thanks for Kyle for covering it, bringing in some awesome guests and killing it. With that being said, we have three teams that we are going to squash out today. What three teams would those be, Kyle?
So we have the Seahawks, we have the football team, and we have the Vikings. And I feel like all three of these teams, like they might need to start over, but they kind of had a semblance of a winning team. Like Seattle, they're always big winners with Russell Wilson, but this year no. The football team, like with their vaunted defensive line, Ryan Fitzpatrick was the answer, whatnot, with all their weapons, didn't perform. And the Vikings, well, with Kirk Cousins, Jefferson, Thielen, Dalvin Cook, there's a recipe for success there, but they can't get over the hump. So I think, but all these teams kind of have some playoff caliber, players on their team, and I think they are kind of close to a playoff team, but it seems like every one of these teams might be rebuilding in a way. So,
yeah. So let's move to the first team then, which will be the Seattle Seahawks. Do you want to just what would you like to do? Sorry, we haven't really talked about how we want to run this. Do you want to talk about their needs?
yeah, so like just an overview of the Seahawks this year. They went 7-10. Definitely underperformed in many areas for sure. Russell Wilson was hurt. That didn't help. Geno Smith came in and did some cleanup duty, and he wasn't very great either. Chris Carson was hurt. I feel like Tyler Lockett was kind of on the downslope. Metcalf didn't do as well. Their offensive line, they've never addressed. Year after year after year, they don't do anything with it. Rashad Penny had a really good year for them down the stretch. 6.3 yards per carry. Very, very good. And then Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner, two really good linebackers for them, performed very well. So if we look at their needs this year, again, it's offensive line. It's like that every year. Dwayne Brown, he's kind of an old fart. Jake Curhan, who is a young kid, he came in and didn't really do well. Just their whole offensive line's in shambles. I mean, they have Gabe Jackson in there, but he's on the up and up too in terms of age. He's not as good as he once was. And then on the other side of the ball, one of their biggest needs is defensive line as well. They have Kerry Hyder, Rasheem Green. They're not – none of them are elite or what you want as edge defenders. So, to rebuild, you're going to need to rebuild from the line of scrimmage. That's offensively and defensively.
Yeah. Yeah, I would absolutely concur with that. And the thing here too, another thought: if you don't want to sink the draft capital into an offensive lineman, whatever, fine, don't do it. You're probably not going to anyways. However, I was kind of glancing over the free agent list. There's quite a number of decent O linemen. They're old, yeah, but I mean, they'd probably go somewhere. I'd take Nate Solder. I would take Brandon Scherf. Bring in some of these veteran guys, and maybe that will rejuvenate some of your underperformers to have someone that's come in there and done a pretty decent job for some underperforming teams and come in and say, hey, this is the kind of culture you want to build for your quarterback. This is the kind of extra work that you have to put in to be better for your quarterback. So either bring in the leadership and a young guy, and maybe the young guy becomes the new leader. Something has to change. They've been so reliant on Russell Wilson doing literally everything. And you know what? Father Time is rude and knocking on the door at this point.
Yeah.
And listen, he's not Tom Brady. He doesn't go into the Lazarus pits and come out and he's a lot younger. That's not how this works. So, A, if you are going to move on from Russ, get something for it. Get something good for it. B, build a better level of success for the next quarterback that comes in. And I say that because you have been a successful organization. in the past. You have with Pete Carroll, absolutely. With Russ, yeah. But you finally hit that mark where everything started to hit. Once you started getting rid of the Legion of Boom, that was the first domino. The
Yeah.
second was not giving Russ anything other than a receiver, and that's great. But if he can't stay upright, that receiver ain't going anywhere. The second part of that was you. I like Chris Carson, I do. However, when Chris Carson goes out and you just want to rely on Rashad Penny, that's not great. Like I get it, Rashad Penny did well, and I get that, but I don't think any analyst would have pegged Rashad Penny to do what he did at the end of the year.
No.
So again, they missed the mark on bringing him help and bringing him something to do. But again, it all goes back to the first problem. If you don't put somebody in there to keep Russ upright, what are you going to expect a running back to do? Look at the Giants right now. Look at Saquon Barkley. Where's he going? Like that's my point. Like an O-line is so critical in the NFL right now. Because
no matter
like bigger, stronger, and badder. So
yeah, and no matter honestly if you're the best quarterback in the world or the worst, like you need one. You look at Aaron Rodgers, you look at Tom Brady, like both of them have very good offensive linemen in front of them, very very good.
Even Matt Stafford, we could say that too. Like has a decent line in front of him.
I mean, it's definitely better in Detroit. I wouldn't call it like
but
anything's better in Detroit. But like they drafted Tristan Wirfs, the Buccaneers did last year as a rookie, 14th overall pick. Now, some teams, what they would do is like, oh, the 14th pick overall, there's a sexy receiver out there or a tight end or a running, you know what I mean? Like, that's not what's needed, like they could have drafted another guy, but they got Antonio Brown off waivers, things like that. They got what's his name, Scotty Miller, like guys like that to fulfill 3 and 4 as receiver. But they got an offensive lineman, a young one, to help Tom Brady out. And Tom Brady can do a lot with little offensive linemen. Like we've seen that. He gets the ball out quick. He doesn't need an elite O-line, but they give it to him because that's what's needed. Like you need to win at the line of scrimmage. The Seahawks have never established that. Even with Russell Wilson, who, yes, we know can run around, make plays off his back foot, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
For his longevity, for his career, like he needs to stop doing that. And they need to give him something in front of him so he can, have his career extended by 3 or 4 years. So it's malpractice at this point. Yeah. And for his sake, I kind of hope they do move on from him and they can he can go to a better organization. Because I feel like the Seattle was at one point, but recently it seems toxic. It seems toxic. And
and let's take this a step further. And I, for the life of me, there's so many Browns in the NFL that I had to look it up to remember because he's not with Baltimore anymore. Listen, when the Orlando Brown sweepstakes were going on, where was Seattle? Even that would have been decent for Russ.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this, if I remember correctly, Kansas City only gave up a 2nd-round pick for him.
Yeah, instead they went after Jamal Adams, who's blitz boy.
He's not awful.
He's just
there are some D linemen that have more interceptions than he does.
Yeah, 100% right. Like, that kind of safety just really isn't popular right now in the NFL because, if you can't cover, if you don't have hands, that's just kind of a detriment to the back half of your defense. So instead of getting Russell Wilson help on the offensive line, which is something you should always do, they went and got out an overrated safety, in my opinion. I think Jamal Adams is very overrated.
Yeah. Well, and even beyond being that style of safety being unpopular, he just hasn't produced.
No.
Why you would sink that much capital into a safety?
Yeah.
If it was a cornerback, sure. If it was a linebacker, I get it. But a safety? Safeties are almost kind of a dime a dozen.
There's not many good ones out there, that's for sure.
No, so why invest in one that's not if they had done with this with Tyrann Mathieu, I get it. Go get the Honey Badger. I get it. But Jamal Adams, I think he's a good kid. I do. But being a good kid is not conducive to being a good NFL player. So
no, he definitely has talent, and early in his career, he was labeled as one of the best safeties, but I think everybody can just see through that now and know that he's not what he was promised to be. Not even close. However, they should probably get a safety, I think, or at least consider one in the draft. Brad, last year they only had 3 picks. Round 2, they selected Dwayne Eskridge, receiver, who had 64 yards in 10 games.
That's
Not
bad.
good. In the 4th round, they selected Trey Brown, a corner, who they said played okay, but he only played 5 games, 1 pass deflection, and he was hurt for the rest of the year. And his last pick was Stone Forsythe, tackle from Florida, who played 14 snaps in the season. So 3 picks, and right now you get pretty much nothing. That's a whole class wasted, especially when you have an old quarterback who's taking up a lot of money. You want to be able to supplant that with picks and guys that'll perform. And instead, you traded a first rounder for Blitz Boy. So not great.
Nope. Well, and I've said this before, and you've heard me say this, and it's an unpopular opinion, but here is a good time to say that. When you're relying on a key piece to come out of anything past that, you have not put enough draft capital into that position. Yeah. I can see if your first round pick is an offensive tackle, and then 6 and 7 you pick up some other ones just to roll the dice. Like, yeah, there have been some that, like Antonio Brown, I know was like a late round pick. Tom Brady was a late round pick, but notice that I'm saying 2 names out of how many people that get drafted every single year. So it's not, if that's how you're going to help Russ, who can blame him for saying, I'm going to go look somewhere else?
Yeah.
This is not the Aaron Rodgers situation where they try to help him give defense. They try to help him give this. They try to help him give that. This is just completely ignoring what Russ needs.
Yeah. They really haven't done a good job of that. And honestly, if you look at their receiver situation, they're trading for Jamal Adams is one thing if like you're right on the cusp of winning a championship. That's the missing piece. We need a hard hitting safety. Okay, you could run that by me. I'd agree. Or I'd say, okay, that makes sense. Like, look what the Rams did. They traded a buttload for Von Miller and Matt Stafford, but they were on the cusp. They're right there. Before those moves, they knew they were a quarterback away from being successful. The Seahawks are not a quarterback away. They're a bunch of things away.
And everything else away.
Yeah, and trading for Jamal Adams is not going to provide them a solution. But let's. Do you want to go to their prospects?
Sure. Actually, I wouldn't mind if you did that one because you did the research on this. Yeah. I won't be offended if you want to do that.
For sure. So they don't have a first round pick, i.e., Jamal Adams, whatnot. So I would go with in the second round. These are some guys, the second round they could probably get. I love Daxton Hill as a cornerback / safety.
Yeah.
He's not the hard-hitting guy Jamal Adams is.
No.
I think Keandre Diggs as their safety, he's getting older. He had a really good year last year, but I think if they want to provide more for that safety group, I think he'd be it. Trent McDuffie, to me, just seems like a Seattle corner. He's very tough, instinctive kind of guy and gets his hands on a lot of balls. I think he'd fit well. But really, I have 2 offensive linemen on here, probably in the 3rd round, Darren Kennard, guard, and Max Mitchell, tackle. I just really think if they can get a tackle or a guard in the 2nd round, go for it. But I just feel like Seattle's not the type of team to do that. No. I think they need a tight end, too. I think if you got Russell Wilson, assuming he's still there, a good tight end, Trey McBride would probably be the guy. I mean, he had a really good year this year. So,
yeah, you're right. I want to look at something. I'll talk in a minute.
So, Trey McBride, the tight end from Colorado State, 6'4", 260, probably had one of the best tight end years, for all of college. So, he really has the ability to be the best of the bunch. Good athlete, good height. Racked up over 1,000 receiving yards this last year. So I think if you don't want to go receiver, I think tight end would be a good spot for him or for Seattle. And then lastly, I have Jermaine Johnson there, defensive end. Like I said, their defensive line it's not anything to rave home about. It's okay. They have some depth guys on their team, but I really think they need kind of like a freak, and I feel like Jermaine Johnson would classify as that. He's like 6'5", a 250, 12 sacks last year, a couple of forced fumbles. He'd be the type of edge that I think they would look at for sure. But they have a lot of holes, and they don't have many high picks to do it. So that's what concerns me about their draft.
If not Trey McBride, I had to see. I thought he declared for the draft. Jalen Weidermeyer, the guy from A&M.
Yeah,
he would be an explosive kind of receiving tight end that they desperately need.
For sure. Yeah, I think he's very athletic tight end. I think could fit in that offense, especially with Russell Wilson. Again, assuming he's there. We'll see. That'll be a big domino for them this year. Is will he stick around? Yeah. And if he doesn't, they'll probably trade him for a couple first-round picks and try to rebuild their team. And if he does, I think it's another long year for Seattle. So, I mean, no matter what, I think it's going to be a long year. But they're not going to do anything in this draft, or probably not even free agency, to just right the ship. I think it's still going to be pretty average next year.
No, I'm with you on that. I agree. So do you usually talk cap space here?
Yeah, I have them at $42 million. That's what's on a spot rack online. So that's a really good amount, especially if they do get rid of Russell Wilson. I'm sure they'll get more. I think if they cut Dwayne Brown, they get like $10 million more. So they have a lot of money to do stuff with it, and I don't think there's any guy on the team besides maybe Metcalf that's deserving of an extension soon.
Yeah,
but they have money for that. It's just what free agents are out there. You mentioned Brandon Scherf. Mentioned another tackle, I believe. So Nate Solder. There are guys out there to help you out. I just don't know if those guys are like, I want to go to a winning team, or I want to get paid. If they're like, I want to get paid, then yeah, Seattle could definitely use them. If I had Russell Wilson on my team and his offensive line has been depleted, I would for sure go after Brandon Scherf. He's been kind of injury prone, but when he's on the field, he's one of the best guards in the game. So
he's powerful. Yep.
Yeah, big Iowa boy. Those Iowa linemen are always so good. So, and coaching hot seat, Pete Carroll. I'm pretty sure his seat's on fire right now. I don't know if they'll get rid of him. I think they should. And yeah.
I don't make arguments for a new head coach very often, but I think the Carroll and Wilson experiment is over. Whether they realize that this offseason, maybe next, I think it's over. Carroll's a good head coach, good guy, but listen, man, it's all about titles. It's all about championships. And if you're not getting there, if you can't help your star player, maybe both of you need to find greener pastures. However, if we are going to revamp Seattle into something stronger, new quarterback is a must. Not going to happen this offseason, even if they trade him. Even if they do trade him, what are you going to take in the first round? Kenny Pickett? Matt Corral? I mean, they're decent, but nobody that's breaking the charts. Honestly, wait another year. Suck really bad. Maybe go after Bryce Young. Or could Stroud could draft too then, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you have multiple people you could draft at that point. But you're going to need someone offensive minded. You need that kind of push. Seattle has always been a very heavily good offensive team. Now, I know the Legion of Boom, people can make an argument for the defense was the thing that anchored that, but you still had Russ. You still had good receivers. You still had Marshawn Lynch. You had a good offense. Who better than Brian Daboll? That guy needs to move on. The Bills are great. They are. But you could do a lot more if you wanted. And you've proven you can take raw talent and transform it into something really good with Josh Allen. Do it again. Prove to people that you are that kind of coach.
Yeah, Brian Daboll would be good. I think Eric Bieniemy would be good too. I don't know why he's not getting as many.
I just don't know if he'll leave Kansas City. It's
a good spot for him to stay for sure.
Yeah,
I don't know if he wants to, but he could. I mean, he could live out his days there under Andy Reid, and eventually even probably take over for Andy Reid. I think. Probably. Reid's not gonna be there forever. So Seattle, that's what you need to do. You need to stop trading away draft picks. You need to recoup draft picks. And you need to build from the line out. Again, I would go for Russell Wilson again. If you have a good quarterback, keep him. But I think he's on his way out. I think he wants to be on his way out. So Let's move on to the football team. They still don't have a name. Not sure why. Hopefully, maybe the generals or the colonels. I don't know what they're going to be. Also, 7-10 this year. Like we said, Brad, we kind of thought the Fitzpatrick signing was going to be something, a step up for them, but
Yeah.
he got hurt, and in comes Taylor Heineke. And statistically not terrible. 65% completion, 20
No.
touchdowns, 15 picks is not great, but
No.
he did okay, I think.
To have to say he did okay means it's not great.
No, yeah,
To say statistically he's good, it's not great.
yeah, it's not
Like
a good
where the wins to back that up.
right.
But
Not a good sign if that's what we're saying. Antonio Gibson's always been pretty good for them, although he did have 5 fumbles this year. But their stable of running backs has always been good. McLaurin had a down year, but I think he's a near elite receiver.
yeah.
However, their Dynami Brown, one of their picks, didn't really do much this year. Only had 160 yards. And then where the heck was Curtis Samuel? He was just gone this year. He didn't play at all. He was hurt, banged up. Like I think every week I saw someone pick him up in fantasy, and I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, well, I'm hopeful that he'll come back, and he never did.
No.
He just couldn't get on the field. So I think Brad, if you would agree that quarterback's probably one of their biggest needs for sure.
Oh yeah. Yep. I'm not one to say you need to be reachy with a quarterback, but if you want one for this year and you're trying to develop a talent, Corral could easily go there. If he's not taken by Denver first, because Denver has needed to address a quarterback since 2012, 2013, like not good. Yeah, I would agree with that. Corral, yeah, hey, all right, hey, I was not completely crazy. I forgot you had Corral on there. Malik Willis, you know what? I would be okay with Malik Willis here, and here's why. Malik Willis is getting a lot of questions. Honestly, Malik Willis, Malik Willis is my number 2 ranked quarterback out of this class. And Kyle's looking at me like, you're insane. Here's why. It's not because he played at Auburn. I'm going to make a case for the state of Alabama. That's not it. He played at Liberty. He did really well at Liberty. Ask me, is there any other NFL talent around him at Liberty?
I wouldn't think so.
Like, this is almost a case to make with, what's his name with the 49ers? I've blocked it out because I don't like
Trey Lance.
Yes. It's almost like a Trey Lance type. He's just a little smaller. He's more speedy. The decision making in the back half of the season was a little questionable, but you're going to reach when you don't have the players you need around you at the same level. You're going to reach a little bit. So I'll be more forgiving for Malik Willis to go to a small school and still put up really good numbers and prove that he knows how to win. Honestly, Washington, you don't have a name. You're searching for an identity. Why not pick up the guy that's proven, I'm just here to win? Corral could make the same case, but Corral went to a really well-known SEC school. Like, yeah, you're supposed to be good. If you're not, like, you're overrated.
Yeah.
But so either one of those is fine. But I would almost take Malik Willis. Corral is my QB1. So either way, it's QB1 or QB2. You're good.
Yeah, I think Malik Willis, we'll see where he goes on draft day. I think they could possibly get him in the second round.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that might not be a bad pick for them. Like you said, you just need a guy in there. And I think any of these guys, even though I don't think they'll ever be elite talents, I think they could be just as good or, as Ryan Fitzpatrick or probably even better. So,
exactly.
Why not take the chance, try to develop them, get them in there? Because, anything that you had this year, I think all those guys could be better. And then you're quarterback away from being in the playoffs. So you get a quarterback, then you might be in the playoffs next year, assuming everybody stays healthy. But
I see you've got offensive line in here too. Yeah, perfect. Offensive line is great. If I remember correctly, Petit Frere is from Ohio State, and he's a big dude. He's like, what, 6'6", 6'7", like big monster.
Massive.
That would be great. Put in a freaking monster and watch people squirm. You've already got one on the defensive side. Why not put one on the offense? Jaquan Brisker, I actually did go back and watch some of his highlights after I played him in NCAA 14. And I was like, okay, he's actually pretty good. So I went to go look, and I was like, okay, yeah, he is good in real life too. All right. Either him or Daxton Hill. Daxton Hill, I don't know where he falls in this draft. Is he a first rounder? Is he a
I
second
think he
rounder?
might be the end of the first, early second.
He could be. But for them to pick where they're picking and take Daxton Hill, I feel like is reaching.
Yeah, I think
So,
maybe in the second round.
Yeah.
Jaquan Brisker, though, we'll see where he falls. But
Yeah.
Penn State bias aside, he can really do it all for you. And their safety situation, it's just not – Landon Collins is hurt, and he's not the player he once was. Bobby McCain, who is that? And they do Cameron Curl, but I don't think he's anywhere elite either. I think that defense was really hyped up, and they did not play well. I would attribute that a little bit to their corners and safeties. So maybe you get one of those guys, and maybe Jamin Davis takes a step forward this year, and it could be a very, very good defense. I just think they need some coverage on the back end and not these hard-hitting safeties like Jamal Adams we just talked about. So,
I did see you have it written here, and I kind of wanted to piggyback on that. Jamin Davis, underwhelming by Washington football team media. He was just underwhelming in general. I would tag him with that. When they made their pick last year in the draft, I looked at that pick for so long. I was like, why? What drove you to do that? He probably would have been around in the second round, maybe blasphemy, maybe the third round. There was no reason to rush to pick him up. It's not like teams were talking in the offseason like, ooh, we need him at linebacker. Nobody was saying that. You could have addressed quarterback. You could have addressed wide receiver. You could have addressed a lot of stuff, but you chose that. So not even by Washington football media. He was just underwhelming in general. But then again, so was that whole defense the entire year that's been good for a lot of years, and then for whatever reason just couldn't make it happen, which I guess injuries and COVID and whatever. But I see the other stuff that you have in there. But I have to say, a quarterback, O-line, and a safety, just help the back end. Those are their three biggest needs. And I love the picks that you have up here. Daxton Hill is just such a good athlete. I feel if you can come away with Daxton Hill, even if Collins comes back, you could run a Daxton Hill and Landon Collins combination, and Alabama bias. I think that might actually be pretty good, but who knows?
Yeah, and their other picks from 2021, I think Cosme had a really good year when he was in, but again, couldn't stay healthy. I think he could shore up their tackle or guard spot eventually. They like Charles Leno. I'm not a big fan, but they like him. But Scherf might be gone, who we just talked about. So if he is, that creates a massive hole in the middle of their offensive line. And honestly, if they went quarterback in free agency, I'll put another name out there. Linderbaum from Iowa, the center.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So again, if they get a quarterback in the second round, they pick up Linderbaum in the first round, that'd be a really good move for them, because another Iowa guy, another interior Iowa guy who I think could anchor that inside for the next 10 to 12 years. So if they really wanted to, I think that'd be a good pick as well. Zion Johnson's from Boston College. He's probably more pro ready than most of the offensive linemen in this draft. I just don't think his ceiling is very high. And then Daniel Falele, he's that massive 6'9", 370-pound tackle from Minnesota. So I don't know how well he can move, but he's an anchor.
I don't care. I don't care. Have you ever seen the movie The Blind Side, Kyle? That's what that is. Just
yeah, he's huge. But again, like you said, offensive line, safety, quarterback, pretty big needs. You kind of hope that Diami Brown plays better next year or gets the ball more. They had a fourth-round pick, John Bates, who surprisingly played all 17 games, had 250 yards receiving and a touchdown, so that's not bad. And they do like Logan Thomas at tight ends. I think they're set there, but really it's about the quarterback, man, about the quarterback and the offensive line, and very similar to what what Seattle's dealing with, and also very similar to what Minnesota is really dealing with as well. So we can move on to them. I think the Vikings are a mess, Brad. I don't think they have an identity. They lost Mike Zimmer. Is Kirk Cousins? I want your opinion. Is Kirk Cousins the answer for them, or should they move on?
Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers are cut from the same cloth. Their stats are great. Them as a player, they're okay. They're okay. Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers basically, and I'm going to get hate for this. I don't care. Like, okay, if you're that much better than Kirk Cousins, what do you have to show for it? Some disappointing playoff trips every freaking year? Almost as bad as not going. Like, you cannot beat the 49ers to save your life. So the answer, is Kirk the answer? For what they're paying him? No.
No, yeah, he's getting paid I think over $40 million this year, which is
you literally could do better with Kellen Mond.
You might. Mike Zimmer didn't talk too highly about him. But then Mike Zimmer got fired, so who knows?
Mond in college, I did.
I did too. Right. I think he had a lot of potential. Very athletic, big arm. It's just he couldn't really, hone down on his accuracy issues and making the right read. But
well, that's hard when you play for a guy whose name is Jimbo. But
I mean, I think he has a lot of talent for sure. I just don't know, if they get a new head coach, new GM, they might want to bring their own quarterback in. We see this time and time again. I mean, the Cardinals, when they had
Kingsbury.
Kingsbury, they got rid of Rosen right away and then picked up
very quickly. Which turned out to be a really good choice. But
it is for sure.
And I know there's criticism about bringing in a new quarterback often, but what do the Vikings have to show for it? The sad thing is, and I can't even think of his name, the Minneapolis Miracle. He went to Houston in college. Keenum.
Oh, Keenum. Yeah.
Has a playoff win before the guy you're paying millions of dollars. Just think about that for a minute. Yeah. That's bad.
Yep.
So do I think Kirk's the answer? Absolutely not. I think Jefferson is a wonderful piece and an attractive enough piece to bring somebody in there and want to play with him.
For sure. And their other receiver spot, Thielen could be gone. I mean, I still like Thielen. I think he's a near elite receiver. A lot of mock drafts had the Vikings going receiver, and I kind of hate that. I think it's one of those picks. It's it's a sexy pick, but yes, he might be the best player on the board at that time, but it just doesn't do anything for their organization. It's just another really good receiver that you have a quarterback to pad his stats with, but then he can't win games. So
let's talk about that. Are you ready for me to pull up the slide?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that because it's going to cut it off. So I'm going to take the team off. Oh no, it didn't cut anything off. All right, cool. So this was my brainchild since you did a lot of work and I decided I was going to. So here's the dealio. Your defense is the worst part of your team, right? We both agree with that. My thought is go ahead and swing in the first round and pick up George Karlaftis. What are you going to lose? Guy's a monster, played at Purdue. If you can be a monster at Purdue in the Big Ten, that's usually saying something. So first round picks out of the way, but you still need a lot of help, right? Well, we're going to walk into the second round, and you'll have two different receiver options. So here's the problem. If you're not going to pick up a veteran quarterback or you're not going to draft one of those, and there's not a number one stud guy, there's not. So you could play the Kellen Mond game and draft somebody in the third round, the fourth round. So I say, if you are going to stick with Kirk Cousins, the win now option is to get another receiver if Thielen really is gone. So Garrett Wilson may not go in the first round. Teams need a lot of things other than receiver right this minute, which means Jameson Williams might go in the first round. Olave is most definitely going to go in the first round. Traylon Burks, David Bell could go in the first. There's so many receiver options.
Yeah. Huh? I said Jahan Dotson.
Jahan Dotson is good. He is.
And they could pick up Jameson or Mechie,
I'm telling you.
That's a
So
lot
I
of
did a
guys.
couple mock drafts, and the two guys that happened to just be there every time I got to that like second round pick were Garrett Wilson, who when I was sifting through stuff, I'm like, that's kind of your best option, like straight up. However, if you want to wait for a receiver later, you could take a really low flyer on somebody that had a lot of potential in college, Justin Ross. He did. He's got the body, he's got the frame, he had the speed, he had the hands. He just couldn't stay healthy. And you know what? That doesn't kill a player's career. Honestly, so Thielen leaves. Okay, save your big capital up front. Go get Roger McCreary. Go help your secondary. Go get Jaquan Brisker. Go get
I
here's the
think
Alabama bias.
I
Go
think
get
Christian
Christian
Harris would
Harris.
be. I think he'd be good there. Eric Kendricks isn't getting any younger. I feel like that is soon going to
No.
be a very big need for them.
Yep.
Like Nick Vigil, I think they like him, but like I think that's an upgraded spot. They could,
Yeah.
pick someone else in there. I think Christian Harris would be a very good pick for them.
And
He-
unbiased. I'm trying to be unbiased, but he was a monster. He
yeah,
was.
for sure.
Like he knows how to play that middle position that Kendricks plays. Like it's almost a plug and play.
Yeah, I
So
think he'd be very similar to what they have Anthony Barr. Like, I mean, he's more of a well-rounded linebacker than Barr is,
yeah.
but like
Yep.
he's not gonna like read and react as well as Kendricks is. But if you could learn under him, like he is like a sideline guy, physical freak. Like he will do well with the Vikings. I mean, I think he'll do well anywhere. I think he's one of these underrated guys in this class. Like we're talking a lot about Devin Lloyd and Nakobe Dean, rightfully so. They're both really good, but
Right, but they'll
well,
probably both be gone in the first round. And
people
unless
are
they're going to
forgetting.
invest in a linebacker in the first round, you're not getting the big guys. You're
Yeah,
not.
people are forgetting about Christian Harris. I think he's gonna be
I
really
think
good.
so too. I think so too because we had Toho, we had Will Anderson, we had Christian Harris, we had a bunch of guys that were just like revolving doors at linebacker all year. So I get it. He kind of gets lost in translation, but that's the beauty of Alabama is that we play a lot of guys, and usually most of them are pretty successful when they play.
Yeah,
So that's why I was like, okay, if you want to take a low flyer on somebody that has a decent resume, Christian Harris isn't bad,
yeah.
but you're not going to get the Nakobe Dean. You're not going to get the Devin Lloyd. So here's my last thing. If you're a Vikings fan, maybe this will make you happy. If you are going to take a quarterback, maybe Mon doesn't work out. Maybe you just pass on Mon, trade him. Maybe he's just a good backup. Here's an interesting one. And you know that I'm not a huge fan of Cincinnati. I think they're overrated. However, I have to admit, Desmond Ridder is very successful. He's very good with his legs. He's been pretty accurate for the most part of his career. Take one of those low flyers. You want a more athletic version of Kellen Mond. That's kind of where my brain was with Desmond Ridder. Like I see the similar, like big bodied quarterbacks that like to be mobile, but Ritter's just a little more accurate. Like you said, the accuracy issues. He's a little more accurate. He's got a better sense of what to do. If you notice, he didn't really turn the ball over against Alabama.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. We're pretty good at taking the ball away from quarterbacks, and he didn't do that. He tried to keep a level head. I mean, it's hard when you're playing a really tough opponent on the road on a big crowd. I get that, but he's kept his head together. He did beat Notre Dame
Yeah.
at Notre Dame. Like he's done a couple things that makes me say, okay, he's not going to be the Tom Brady find. He's not going to be the Matthew Stafford. I'm the first round, like first guy off the board. That's not what's going to happen. But if you can take a low flyer on Justin Ross and Desmond Ridder, if you trust your new coaching staff, if you trust who you have to invest stuff, you might have a good pairing with Justin Jefferson, and maybe in the future you've got a new quarterback in Ridder. So this was the best way to address the defense up front because your defense lost you more games than your offense. And then if you do want to bolster your offense, go late round. Push some stuff in the late round. So
Yeah, I think those two linebackers first, like they could definitely get them with their 13th or 14th overall pick. I just think there are other massive needs that will be, available for that pick. I think they should, if they were smart, they probably would go for one of those guys or maybe a quarterback. I think offensive line too is a massive need. Christian Darrisaw played okay. He did allow 5 sacks out the first 5 weeks. Wyatt Davis only played special teams, and people thought as a third round pick that was a steal. like that's not good from your first two offensive linemen drafted last year. It's not enough. I think Garrett Bradbury at center, they drafted him a couple years ago. He hasn't been what he's needed to be. Um, and, like they have Dalvin Cook, so like, and he can make a lot out of nothing. But you would think that offensive line is going to be another big priority for them. I don't think they'll go there first round. I think they're going to let these guys develop more. But I think you're right. I think they should probably take some flyers on guys because like Kirk Cousins is going to get paid $50 million. You know, you
Yeah.
can't just go out and pick a first round quarterback and then what do you do with him? You know, like you need to develop some guys for sure. And I don't think they should take a receiver early as well. So I think they need to address, offensive line for sure, linebacker. I think safety is a big need, but like all these teams, there is a quarterback problem. We talked about the Jaguars first overall in this podcast, and they don't have a quarterback problem because I think they found their quarterback. But like the Seahawks, Russell Wilson might be gone. The football team, they don't have one. The Vikings, no one likes Kirk Cousins. So, all three of these teams.
It's not that I don't like him. I just think they overpaid him.
Yeah, they did for sure.
Yeah.
He's not worth it.
No.
He can't get you to the playoffs, and I don't think he is clutch at all. And also, he doesn't believe in COVID, so that's another thing. But he doesn't. But yeah, it's all three of these teams: quarterback, offensive line. I think are massive needs. And I think all three of these teams could be like a good, healthy quarterback and a couple more linemen away from being, it's easier said than done. But like all of these teams were on the cusp of playoffs at one point, and Seattle lost Russell Wilson. The football team have a sucky quarterback. Kirk Cousins chokes. Like if they had better quarterback play, they definitely could have gotten in.
Right.
But as we all know, anyone who does mock drafts, anyone who listens to this show or any shows knows that these quarterback class is very divisive. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how you feel about this quarterback class, but I feel like it's very all over the place.
So I mentioned this on Twitter. So sorry we haven't gotten around to it. The plan is, I've heard a lot of people talking about, I want to hear quarterback rankings from this class. Like, what do you think their strengths are? How would you grade them? Who would you put where? I gave a little bit of a leeway to that with Willis and Corral, but I really would like us to put out like a doc of like, hey, here's the quarterbacks. Here's what we have to say about each one of them. Here's our individual grades and like an overall grade. And I'd love to post that. So we might work on that this week, maybe next week, and get that out definitely before the draft at least. Yeah. But I want to talk about it because this quarterback class is divisive, if anything. Yeah. So
it really is. So again, I think all three of these teams could easily pick one. The Vikings, I mean, they really need to draft well because they have negative $12 million this offseason. So, They can't sign any guys right now, so they don't have a head coach. Like this is out of all these teams, like Seattle's attractive. I think if they have Russ, the football team's attractive. Even if Ron Rivera was to get fired, which I don't think he should, but that would be attractive because they have an elite defense. But the Vikings, negative cap space, just got rid of their head coach. Their quarterback's owed $45 million. Like there's a lot of reasons why someone would not want to come here. So do you think there's any head coach out there that would want to go to the Vikings? Anybody that you're thinking of?
I'm so glad you asked this. Yes. We've watched enough sports movies that we like reunions. Why not bring back Eric Bieniemy as a head coach this time? That is my entire thought. I was like, and like you just said, new coach brings a new quarterback, get rid of him. Find somebody else, whether it's through the draft, whether it's a veteran guy. But I think all three of us on this podcast are big believers in Eric Bieniemy. I think he's done some stellar work working around Patrick Mahomes. Who is great, but wasn't great coming out of college. He was okay. Like nobody viewed him as like the quarterback of the class.
Right.
So, it's one of those like, you take something, you build around their strengths and make it the best. And honestly, the Chiefs are good. Yeah. maybe a little overrated sometimes in games, but that's a whole different discussion.
But they do
But
have
honestly,
elite talent that the coaches are putting in position to make plays. And I
yeah,
mean, the Vikings, Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, you add on Adam Thielen, like
two weapons, two good weapons.
all those three guys. Like if you were talking about like give me like the best teams with two receivers and a running back, like I'd put them up there. Like
Yeah,
both those guys, Dalvin Cook healthy, that's one of the best trio I've seen. So, obviously Dallas would be up there too. The Packers maybe, but like two legitimate weapons on the outside and a really good running back, and they can't get to the playoffs. Like that's a coaching issue. And I
that's
think that's a
hard. I'm
quarterback
looking at that. I'm
problem.
like, yeah, that's not common in the NFL to have two good outside guys and a good running back.
Yeah, and not getting in. So I hope they get a good head coach that can develop quarterbacks. Again, I don't think Kirk Cousins will be the answer going forward. Kellen Mond could be. You never know. I think quarterback is on their radar. So I think Eric Bieniemy would be a good choice. I love Brian Dable if he can get his guy in there. Um, I don't think they should go defensive guy. Like I don't think that's gonna work out. Um, I think they should go offensive guy so they can get Thielen and Jefferson and Dalvin Cook involved in the best ways. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, I think that's going to wrap up another episode of Sideline GMs. Thanks for hanging. As usual, we like tearing apart teams that need a lot of help, which is most of them.
yeah.
Um, but thanks for hanging. We'll see you next Wednesday at 7. And what did I? Oh, hey, if you've listened to us for a long time, we were not really great about how we put out our episodes and like how you could listen to us and stuff. We are currently working on a database of putting our old episodes on Spotify. I know a lot of you listen on the go, and that's great because we're going to put vintage episodes in, and we are potentially talking about doing some vintage style episodes coming up. So if you really loved our old stuff, here is your chance to hear more of it. So we will update you with that. Kyle, it's been real. Let us sign out this puppy.
See ya.